Yo, what is going on, everybody? It's KJ here, and I'm back for UPBA Week 3. Unfortunately, I did have some audio issues again. This was sort of the last of the span of 3 or 4 games where I had audio issues. So, hopefully this is the last time I do a post-com, but we'll see. OBS, just technology has been kind of failing me recently, but anyway. We are playing Aquarius this week and the Chicago Strengths app. I've seen a handful of Aquarius' stuff on YouTube and some showdown replays that they've posted as well, and they're a very good coach. Team is comprised of Mew, Terrakion, Milotic, Rotom Heat, Diggersby, Weezing Galar, Registeel, Talonflame, Vileplume, Driftblim, Guzzlord, and Wigglytuff. I'm going to be honest, this was an incredibly hard match to prep for. Actually, my last 2 matches have been super hard to prep for, but this match in particular was really tough because I felt like Talonflame and Rotom Heat put on a ton of pressure. As you can see on the bottom of the screen, Talonflame and Rotom Heat did not even come to this match. Mew and Terrakion were really tough, especially because I thought Zarude did really well. But I needed to make sure that I could click Dark-type moves freely, which was pretty tough when there's a Terrakion and a Weezing. But yeah, so this was definitely a tough one. I was kind of leaning on Lando a little bit to help with momentum. I also thought that an offensive Rotom could be really good outside of the like what's on the screen here, outside of the Guzzlord. So, yeah, and then I was really hoping that Specs, Kyurem, as well as Weakness Policy, Diancie would be able to do some work. So, yeah, we are going to get into this. I do end up leading with Zarude. And before I go any further, please, I will have Aquarius's channel in the description below. Please go drop Aquarius a follow, as well as watching Aquarius's side of the battle. So if I remember, I will go back and add their side of the battle to the description, but at the very least, the channel link will be in the description, so please go check them out. They are really awesome content creator. So yeah, so we're gonna get into this. Again, I do lead with Zarude, and I was actually really happy to see Aquarius' lead, so we'll get into that. But yeah, so also again, if you didn't know, my nicknames are Golden Sun themed. Just another shout out to Golden Sun. So yeah, I lead Zarude, Aquarius leads with Mew, and I decided I'm just going to U-turn here, expecting most likely Weezing to come in, because Weezing is the most natural switch in here, just because nothing else wants to take like a close combat or like anything. It resists pretty much everything that Zarude has for it, but U-turn here was good because it gives me the momentum to go in to something else. And at this point, actually, I realized I don't have a great Will-O-Wisp switch in, so nothing on my team that could come in on Will-O-Wisp and could come in and threaten this wants to take a Will-O-Wisp. So I do end up going into Metagross, and I am a little worried that I'm going to catch a Will-O-Wisp, but I decide to just go for the Meteor Mash. Best case scenario is that Registeel comes in, or worst case scenario. Best case scenario for me is that this comes in, because I knew that Meteor Mash didn't kill. So seeing that they switched out, I should have known that this Weezing probably didn't have Will-O-Wisp. In my head, I was kind of harping on it, thinking like Will-O-Wisp could be a thing. But yeah, so Registeel comes out. I don't know what kind of Registeel this is. I do know that it did take more damage than I thought it was going to from that Meteor Mash, so I was pretty sure it was specially defensive. I didn't know how specially defensive, but I was pretty sure that it was specially defensive. So I decided to go into Lando here and basically figure out what they're going to go for. I kind of expected a switch. I was thinking maybe a switch into like Guzzlord or something like that. So I go into Lando here, and obviously Intimidate doesn't work with the Clear Body. You can see that they're actually a setup set, so Iron Defense setup. And also, absolutely incredible nickname, Tin Titans for Registeel. I love the nickname, so I want to give a shout out there as well. But yeah, so we do see that it's leftovers and it's Iron Defense, so I'm guessing Iron Defense Body Press, Rest, and maybe Sleep Talk or Toxic last move. But so Registeel comes back and in comes the Wheezing. I did click Earthquake just in case, but in hindsight I probably should have U-turned there. That would have helped me get Metagross back in, especially because it looked like they didn't want to keep Wheezing in on Metagross. So again, I should have thought about that and thought, okay, well, there's no potential Will-O-Wisp coming, because I think trading Wheezing for a Will-O-Wisp might have been, on Metagross, might have been worth it, especially if they could have lived the potential Meteor Mash. So yeah, here I was thinking maybe I go into Kyurem, and I was kind of back and forth because I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. I do go into Diancie, and this is one of the first moves I regret, because they do reveal that they have Toxic, and that really, really, really hurts the longevity of my Diancie. Thinking back, I probably should have went into Metagross. Going into Metagross there was definitely the play, especially because Metagross forced out Wheezing prior. So at this point I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm Toxic, I'm on a timer, maybe I can set up a Rock Polish here, and then like something will come in that can hit this thing super effectively, and I'll be in a pretty good spot. So looking at the team, there's a few things that could hit this super effectively. I do have a weakness policy, so not Sheikah Berry. I do have a weakness policy, so that's at least good. So we do Rock Polish here, and so now we do outspeed everything on their team barring a Scarf, but I was still, or barring a Scarf and Unburden Drift Blimp, but was still pretty worried about Mew. So I figured if I can trade Mew and Diancie, then that's not the end of the world. But again, I still, like, hindsight, I wish I would have played this a little differently, because if I would have went into Metagross on the Toxic, then that would have put me in a much better spot to be able to continue to pressure the Wheezing, and I could have maybe doubled on the potential Registeel switch in to Metagross, and then like doubled into Lando, and then you turned out. I would have been able to position myself a lot better. So we do hit with the Moonblast, and then the Earth Power comes in, does proc the weakness policy, but again, we're Toxic. So we're on a timer, we've only got 2 turns, and this is definitely rough. So here I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna click Mystical Fire, or actually we don't have 2 turns, we have 1 turn. This is our last turn, so I'm gonna click Mystical Fire. I was thinking that what was coming in was the Registeel, and I knew that it resisted my other 2, my stabs. So I'm gonna click Mystical Fire, hoping that Mystical Fire would do a large chunk to the Registeel. So Tin Titans comes out, so that was a good read. However, what we're about to see is that this Registeel is actually fully Spadef. So that did absolutely nothing. That like tickled the Registeel. So that was unfortunate. I was hoping that it had some Spadef, but I was hoping that did a little bit more. In Calcs, it was more than a 2-hit KO, but that was also because I wasn't calcing fully Spadef. So at this point, we're definitely in a tough spot because Registeel definitely does a ton to our team. I can't bring in my Kyurem. I decide that I'm going to go with Rotom, and in this particular case, I think that was the best scenario. This is kind of where I wish I had Will-O-Wisp on the Rotom. Like, I wish I had brought a more defensive Rotom instead of a super offensive one, especially because Guzzlord comes in, and at this point I'm thinking, okay, Guzzlord's in, I don't really have anything to hit this thing. Like, everything is resisted. I just got behind a sub, and now it's a little bit of mind games, and I don't know what this Guzzlord set is. I was thinking if it's coming in on Rotom, then it might be Specs, it might be AV, but I figured the only way I would be able to even come close to breaking this thing was to click Nasty Plot, so that's what I did. Yeah, in hindsight, like, I think I just, in general, played my cards wrong. Like, I needed to keep DNC around for this thing, and I definitely didn't do that, and this, like, DNC was my way to check this, because DNC was offensive, but with the weakness policy would have been able to pretty much blow through this. Like, with the weakness policy, Proctor would have been able to blow through this thing, and then also, this has, like, DNC resists or is immune to both of its stabs, so that would have been really clutch for me. But it's okay. In hindsight, is 50-50. Or hindsight's 50-50. Wow. Yeah. Can you tell I'm tired? Hindsight's 20-20. So it is what it is. So we do get the +2 Thunderbolt off. We see the very little bit of damage, even from a resisted hit, and we do realize that this thing is AV. So AV, Guzzlord was a very, very good bring. This is actually the second week in a row that I'm just, like, kind of getting wrecked by something that was AV that I didn't expect. So yeah, here I'm thinking, what can I do with this? I don't want Rotom to go down, but at the same time, I'm thinking, like, I could keep it in and just attack again. I do decide to go into Zarude, just because it does put some pressure on, and with this thing being AV, it's not physically defensive. So it does knock off, and we do lose our Chople Berry, which does suck for having to deal with Terrakion, but here we can pressure this thing out, potentially, with a U-turn, and I think the safest play for them would be to go into Weezing, just because, again, like, Weezing resists all of Zarude's moves. Again, in hindsight, I wish I would have pressured more with Metagross, especially knowing that Weezing didn't have Will-O-Wisp. That would have been good. I did have Rock Slide for both the Rotom and the Talonflame, which was really rough because I had wished that I had Rock Slide, and then I also had Ice Punch, I believe, specifically for the Guzzlord. So realized that they don't switch out, which is really unfortunate. They let Guzzlord take the damage, and then I'm thinking, okay, well, I kind of have to sack something now. This isn't good. And I was thinking about going into Metagross. I was thinking Draco is probably getting dropped here, and I should go into Metagross, and then I should just Ice Punch this thing. But for some forsaken reason, I go into Landorus, and that was a huge mistake, because now one of my best checks to things like Terrakion is about to take an enormous Draco from Guzzlord. So again, I did not play this game well at all. Yeah, you can see we take a ton of damage from that, and yeah, again, in hindsight, I wish I would have played that differently as well. But again, it is what it is. You can only do so much, and I've definitely been on a little bit of a little bit of a rut. So hopefully I can pick things up going forward. But yeah, so continuing on, we do click U-turn, which I'm hoping does end up clearing this thing out. And honestly, I also should have been running calcs, like trying to run some quick calcs in game. I try not to do that, especially in Wi-Fi, but I think in this particular case, with the matchup being a little rough and sort of poorly positioning myself, I definitely should have done that. But again, it's all good. So we do take out the Guzzlord, and then we get Rotom in. And so at this point, I'm thinking, what comes in? and it's the Terrakion. So Terrakion is definitely a huge problem. Again, if we had, I think potentially like a Scarf Rotom could have been really good here, especially because it would have been able to outspeed the Terrakion if Terrakion wasn't Scarfed, and then potentially burn it or hit it with a Will-O-Wisp. Hindsight, again, 2020. But yeah, so Rotom goes down, and now the tough part is like, what do I bring in? Because everything gets pressured by a close combat at this point. And even, I mean, Terrakion just did a lot to my team in general, especially with my Fairy being not resistant. But here I'm just thinking, okay, Metagross comes in, and sort of like, what are they gonna do here? Because I think they're gonna switch into Registeel, and so I decide I'm gonna go into Lando, and basically at this point I'm realizing the game is close to lost, especially because Registeel is still around, which means that I'm in a really tough spot with Kyurem. And then also Terrakion, like anything that comes in can potentially really pressure. So they actually go into the Drifblim here. So Drifblim comes out, I go into Lando, and I actually think that I could make up some ground here. So I decide I'm gonna click U-turn, and I know I'm a little ahead of the video, but as I'm going through, it's all coming back to me. So, so I decide I'm gonna click U-turn here, especially because if this thing is Focus Sashed with like Focus Sash, Nasty Plot, or Calm Mind, that's gonna be really annoying, especially if the Unburden procs. So I want to make sure that I don't proc that. So I do click U-turn to get a little bit of chip, potentially pop a Sash. And at this point, I'm thinking, okay, my best switch in here is probably Zarude, because a Shadow Ball is probably coming out. And I went back and forth. I was like, I could go into Metagross, I could go into Zarude. Let me go into Metagross. Or let me go into Zarude. So I go into Zarude, and fortunately I do properly read the Shadow Ball. So that's good. Now, here is actually sort of like the biggest turning point in this game, potentially. I'm looking, and I decide to click Rock Tomb. This was a 50-50 call, because if Terrakion came in here, or if Weezing came in here, like this works out. But because of what transpires, this was actually the wrong play. I got the 50-50 wrong. So you'll see in a second exactly what happens here. And I'm kicking myself for this, and actually I was talking to Aquarius after the game, and I was like, yeah, I wish on that turn I would have clicked Lariat. So this Drifblim ends up clicking Indoor, and at this point, I'm just like, I'm kicking myself. I'm so mad because it's not Focus Sash's weakness policy. And Indoor would have put Drifblim at 1 HP had I clicked Darkest Lariat, because Lariat definitely would have brought it down. Instead I clicked Rock Tomb, which means that nothing on my team was faster, because it was still, it gets the +2 boost from Unburden. So I was really disappointed about that, and I decided, okay, well, now I just have to click Rock Tomb again. If I wasn't in my own head, like the Air Cutter was kind of obvious, Air Cutter Acrobatics, I could have went into Metagross. And at that point, like going into Metagross could have been good, because then I would have saved Zarude, which would have been really nice. And then with Metagross, I would have taken the Air Cutter, I would have clicked Bullet Punch, and then I could have came back in with Kyurem and been able to live a hit and kill this thing. Instead, like I said, I let Zarude go down, so that was another misplay. So this next few sequences is just like a series of misplays, because at this point, I was really tilted that I let the Drifblim get the Unburden proc, because again, I should have clicked Darkest Lariat. I would have got it to 1 HP, and then I could have went into, if it was at 1 HP, I could have went into Metagross on the expected flying move, lived, and then Bullet Punched this thing and got rid of it. And then I would still have 4 Mons, they would have had 4 Mons, and I would have had a little bit more of a chance, but instead I let Zarude go down, and then I don't get the KO with the Bullet Punch, and Shadow Ball kills the Metagross. And at this point, again, I'm just tilted at myself, like not even at the game. Like Aquarius played a hell of a game, and I think in the beginning, like I was able to put pressure on, and then towards the middle and end of the game, I just kind of dropped the ball. But yeah, so I mean, it happens. It is what it is. But yeah, so I was pretty tilted, and I brought Lando in here. I should have went Kyurem. I should have went Kyurem when Metagross was still alive. Going Kyurem would have been the better play, because I would have been able to get rid of this thing, or at least force it out, because Kyurem does live a hit. And this is why I said I should have been calcing. Like, if I would have calced, I would have realized that Bullet Punch probably wouldn't have gotten rid of the Drifblim. I would have went into Kyurem, and I also would have calced to see that I could have went into Kyurem and successfully took a hit. So yeah, again, it is what it is. It's all good. It is Pokemon. Obviously you want to win, but at the same time, like, I'm not gonna beat myself up over it too much. But yeah, so we do end up taking out the Drifblim, but not before it pretty much just destroyed the entire team, which again is unfortunate, but it happens. It's all good. Definitely excited to sort of get some redemption. I've been on a huge slump lately with Mons, especially in this league. The last 2 weeks for this league have been pretty rough. So I'm really hopeful that week 4 and on we can like really pick it up. There's 12 weeks in the season, so things happen. But yeah, so Terrakion does get the last kill, and we do go down 4-0. So we're gonna be moving to 1 and 2. I think -7, which again is not the end of the world. It's rough, but can definitely climb back from it. So keeping my head up, gonna do my best to try to make a better push. But GG to Aquarius, and again, go check out their side of the match. And so I will catch everybody for next week. Thanks. Peace.